This is an animated supplement for Chapter 26, South Cavalry Field, from the book Our Fathers at Gettysburg by Kunkel. Around noon on July 3rd, two Federal cavalry brigades guarded the Army of the Potomac's left flank. One of them was commanded by Brigadier General Merritt and the other by Brigadier General Farnsworth. General Meade, expecting an afternoon attack by the Confederates, had sent Merritt orders to create a distraction so as to hopefully divert some of the Confederate infantry that might otherwise participate in the main attack. Early that afternoon, Merritt dismounted his cavalry and advanced toward the Confederate line, which in this area was commanded by General Law. Merritt's men pushed back a small cavalry regiment, which in turn called for help from Law. Law personally led several Georgia infantry regiments to deal with the problem. These infantry easily outmatched the Federal cavalrymen and drove them back to where they started. Nothing more came of this, but if his job was to create a distraction and draw off some Confederate infantry, Merritt had succeeded. On Bushman Hill, about 500 yards east of Merritt, and operating independently, was another cavalry brigade commanded by General Farnsworth. But Farnsworth was not actually in command, as his division commander, General Kilpatrick, was there on the scene. Earlier that afternoon, Farnsworth or Kilpatrick ordered the 1st West Virginia Regiment to attack the 1st Texas skirmish line. The West Virginians did so, only to discover that the boulder-strewn terrain was terrible for cavalry, and the 1st Texas line was quite solid. The West Virginians were quickly driven back to Bushman Hill, happy to have escaped with their lives. But this activity, along with Merritt's attack, had raised General Law's concerns about the aggressiveness of the Federal cavalry, and he about faced some of his Alabama infantry to guard the rear, while he also deployed some artillery to face towards Bushman Hill. Later that afternoon, when the exciting news filtered in that the Confederates had been repulsed at Cemetery Ridge, and probably about the glorious charge made by Custer over on East Cavalry Hill, Kilpatrick became antsy and decided he wanted Farnsworth to charge the Confederate infantry here on the south side of the line. Farnsworth objected, stating the obvious that cavalry were no match for infantry, and in any case the ground was terrible for cavalry horses. But Kilpatrick insisted, so Farnsworth led the charge. Two of the regiments, the 18th Pennsylvania and 1st West Virginia, made a half-hearted effort but never got past the 1st Texas skirmishers. But the 3rd Regiment, the 1st Vermont, led by Farnsworth himself, broke through the skirmish line, charged northward past the Slider Farm under fire from Confederate artillery, before turning right and galloping down the road to a D-shaped field where they ran into an entire firing squad of Confederate infantry. The 1st Vermont broke into two sections. One section headed straight south, back to Bushman Hill, breaking through the Confederate skirmishers. The other section galloped back down the road past the Slider Farm, under fire from Confederate infantry and artillery, turned left, and headed straight south back to Bushman Hill. Farnsworth was not among them. He was killed at the D-shaped field, shot 5 times after refusing to surrender, in what was the last significant action of the Battle of Gettysburg. For much more on this battle, including descriptions by the soldiers involved, as well as photos, illustrations, and Google links to the actual battlefield locations, please refer to this book,